obviously. First of all, um, I was about to say I apologize, but I guess that is the best way to put it. I apologize I haven't been able to join the live stream for a while. Not to get too into what's going on in Sheets World, but it's a little Sheets World can be quite ripe with variance from time to time, and the last couple of months have been ripe with a little bit too much variance for me, if you want to know the truth. So hope to make it up to you guys a little bit today, and we're going to go through my whole process of building lineups for this evening's slate. We're going to do both DraftKings and FanDuel, and we're going to use both my sheets. We're going to use SaberSim, and we're going to um, go through it. You can feel free to ask whatever questions come to mind. The other thing that I would mention is that 11 p.m. tonight, we are going to be doing a live sweat at 11 again, where we're going to both look at the lobbies and see who's doing well, both from our subs and just the overall state of the slates, which I don't think I've done yet for baseball. I'm going to try to make that somewhat informative as well as entertaining if anything's good to sweat. And then we're also going to do a PGA live lineup build as well. James, first question. Sheets, can you tell us which expensive pitcher you're using tonight so we can avoid? Yes, that is actually a very important. That is probably the most important question to be answered is which expensive pitcher I am going to be using so that we all can avoid it. Now, again, I've tried to do this, and sometimes I do this with other parts of my wagering life is figure out, and this is what I did with DFS when I first started DFS. I figured out who I liked, and then I figured out, okay, now that I know who I like, how am I going to fade myself? Now, back then, it was just because I usually would just only gear towards the chalky plays. So, but now we're going to try to fade myself just to try to like mess with the mojo. But I don't know, tempting the MLB gods like that is very dangerous. So I don't know if we can get away with doing that. I was thinking of that. I was thinking, listen, I'm 100% like say Glass now, so let's X him out. You know, I just think that the baseball gods are just going to be way too punishing if we do something like that. But what we can do, we are going to, by the way, I am going to tell you who my highest owned pitcher is when I know what it is. And we're going to go take the next hour or 50 minutes or whatever to go through it. So I want to share my screen first and show you what we're going to do. So we're going to go back and forth between a couple of things. So these are the sheets, and I'm going to go back and forth between DraftKings and FanDuel. This is DraftKings. You see it says MLB DK on the top, maybe in shaded. That's how you'll know, and you'll also know because of the salary row. But and we're going to go to the stacks. We're going to do everything, and then we're also going to have the SaberSim interface as well, where we're going to build that way. And the way I like to do it is I like to start with the sheets, then go to SaberSim, then go back to the sheets to figure out what tweaks I want to make. Okay, so we'll do DraftKings first, and we will do both sides. So the first thing to analyze are the kind of the pitchers, and usually it's the pitchers that are the top value scores here. And one thing that is somewhat interesting is that they are all pretty close at the top. So Glasnow, Kershaw, Verlander, and Castillo, they're all really like kind of close enough. And then Whitlock is just below them as far as Sheets value score. The other thing to note is what these raw numbers mean. So I don't talk about that as much as I should. Usually when you do have a value score of 40, that is very, very strong. Okay, so it's something to respect. Like if you have a top Sheets value score of 30, for example, and then everybody else is 24, it's not as if you need to get the 30. Okay, But when you have these guys at like 40, those are pretty good. Now, the other thing I will look at is the ownership here on the right. And like if I were just kind of just eyeball this before I do anything, I would say, okay, probably a good idea would be to play Verlander because he rates very similarly to these top two, and he's probably half the ownership. So again, we haven't really built anything yet, but this is just kind of like the overall sense that I'm getting. And then the other interesting piece is that Castillo, while he is just as owned as these top two, he's a little bit below. Okay, so again, is it that much below to make that much of a difference? No, but it is something to keep in mind. And the other thing that's interesting to note is that Whitlock, just below these guys, really is only about 12% owned. So that is something actually to think about. Now, before I even go into the stacks, the other thing you'll notice is that you have Rob Refsnyder at 2,600, who is, I think, leading off for Boston. And then you have Justin Turner right here at 3,800. So before I even look at anything, I know that Boston is going to be pretty popular, or at least they're going to rate really well. And I imagine they're going to be really popular. So the next thing I will do is I will go into the stacks, and then what we'll do is we're going to rank them two ways. This is DraftKings first. First, we're going to rank them just based on raw points. And you'll see that Tampa and Boston are very, very close to one another. And then there's a little bit of a drop. And then you have all these dudes over here. They're kind of close. So what I like to do, again, just before I actually build anything, is I say, okay, is there any ownership break anywhere? So like you see Tampa and Boston, they rate about the same. Tampa's maybe a little bit lower owned. So I guess Tampa's a little bit better with respect to that. And the other thing I will notice is that if you do take this drop, you don't get any real ownership discount until you get to the Angels or maybe Texas. So Angels and Texas are the teams in this second group where you're getting the ownership break. And Toronto's a little bit as well. Cincinnati, you're not getting ownership break as well. And you're not getting any ownership break at all. Now, as you'll see when we sort these by value, there's a reason why these Texas and Angels are low owned, because it's going to be very difficult to play them because of price. So, like for example, when I sort here by stack, by modified stack actually, then you have Boston still at the top, and then you have KC, Cincinnati, Toronto. Angels are actually still look pretty good. Tampa drops a little bit because they're a little bit expensive, and then you'll see Texas all the way down here. So that's why Texas is going to be really low owned, is because it's kind of just difficult to play them. Now, again, this is just go through my thought process. My thought process is this. I mean, if those pitchers up there look really good, maybe I shouldn't mess around with the low owned, high price stacks. Maybe what I should try to do is go for these types of value plays. So the one thing I will notice, by the way, this is not to be lost on everybody. When you do have a team, and this is just from my experience running these sheets, that rates high in both, look at Boston, for example, raw stack, they're ranked tied for first, and in modified stack, they're first. That's very rare, and it's very strong. So Boston, I consider as definitely a better overall stack than Tampa, because Tampa doesn't show up as well in the value rankings. And the other team that's actually pretty sneaky, it looks like, would be the Angels, because the Angels, they show up in both raw stack and in modified, and they're kind of low owned. So that's really, really interesting. So what I am going to do is I am going to do DraftKings first, and then I'm just going to go to FanDuel if you don't mind. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go into SaberSim, and I already uploaded the updated projections and ownerships, and then we're going to build, and we're going to look at it from a different perspective. So what I'm doing, just so you know what I'm playing 50 lineups in the lottery, and then a couple of big buy-ins. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to build 50 lineups, and we're going to set the SaberSim settings to 150 max, min salary 49.5, and a pool size of 500. and we're going to just fire it. And then I'm going to show you the different tweaks that I make. And we can talk about individual players or whatever, but I really do think this is going to be more instructive. Okay. All right. Okay. So it looks as though pitching wise, if we just built it like this, okay, pitching wise, you'd see Verlander and Glasnow and Castillo and Kershaw dominate the board, which makes sense. And then all these guys just kind of, okay, so it reflects to some degree my sheets, which I like. I like when it kind of reflects that. The other thing I'll look at is under team stacks. It's giving me 50% Toronto, 46% Cincinnati, 26% Boston. This all seems sort of normal. But before we do anything, I have to tweak stack types because I don't want to play any of these 4 zeros or anything like that. And listen, Bobby and I can debate this, whatever, but I'm definitely more of a purist when it comes to stacking. I really only want to have 5 mans, especially on big slates. So we're going to X out the 4 zeros, the 4 2s, the 4 3s. We'll keep the 5 zeros with the one-offs. And then we'll go back to see how that affected things. So once again, team stacks 50%, 46% Cincinnati. Now, one thing that you could do, which I think I kind of want to do, but which is kind of a little subtle, if you want to just not take as big of a stand on players, what you can do is just within this min unique players thing, just put that up to 2, and it'll reshuffle a little bit. Okay, now you're still getting a good amount of Toronto and Cincinnati, but it made things a little more spread out. Now, the other thing that I would like to consider, okay, is to change this sort function. So when you run a SaberSim build and you set it for like 150 max, it's going to default. You have all these different ways to rank teams. What this is defaulting to is the large slate rankings, meaning that it's based on 10K to 50K entrance. So depending on what type of tournament you're playing or how you feel about the slate, you could screw around with this. Like this, I would probably play in like the lottery, okay? But if you wanted to be a little more conservative, there's a couple of things you could do. Is number one, you could play MLB large slate, but 100 to 1K entrance, and you can see how your lineups can differ. It's still maybe get a little more Cincinnati, a little more Toronto, but yet still it's the same type of pitching. Oh, actually a little more, actually not so much different. Glasnow, Verlander, Castillo, Kershaw. And another way that you can sort these, if you want to be even more conservative, is you go by projected score. So when you go by projected score, that's when you get sort of like more of the optimal lineup. Now, it's not as if we're sorting by projected score and you're being all chalky, because remember, we started with the pool of kind of high upside lineups. And this is kind of a neat little SaberSim trick that I like to do, is you start with the high upside lineups, and then if you want to be a little more conservative, then you resort by projected score, and you get a decent mix. Okay. So now with this type of builds, you're going to be getting still like a whole bunch of Cincinnati, but then Boston, Toronto, Houston, whatever it is. And as far as pitching goes, let's see what we got pitching wise. Glasnow, Verlander, Kershaw, Castillo, Valdez, Detmers, Whitlock, and Cole. Okay. Now, what I could just go through and just go one by one, but I've just learned that it's just kind of better to just kind of trust the system. Okay. So it depends on how much risk I want to take. One thing I could do is, and what I think I am going to do is, in the lottery, I'm going to stick with the large slate builds. Okay. And then in the higher buy-ins, maybe I'll go with projected score. So let's do that actually. So as you see, we've looked at our projections. We're putting in a SaberSim. We're telling it to build high upside lineups with good correlation, and this is what we're getting. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to download these, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put these in my existing build. Now, again, just to kind of show you where all that is. Hang on, I'll get it from the other page. Now, again, you can use the SaberSim entry editor to do this. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull up my thing here, and I'm just going to replace these. So here, and then what we're going to do for now is we're just going to put the top-rated lottery-type lineups in the slots for the big buy-ins. But then we're going to be a little more circumspect. We're going to go just take another look at it. Okay. All right. So we've just updated the entries. Okay. And now that I think I want to do is now I want to just kind of try to hand build a little bit. And I want to make sure that it kind of like matches what we were saying. So what's interesting to me is that I thought that we'd be getting, decent amount of Cincinnati, which we are. But I really kind of wanted to get some of these lower owned pieces, like the who is it? Like the Angels was that one that kind of kept showing up. So what I am going to do is I will go back in here. I'll get to that in a second, Clay. Go back into Team Stacks and just make sure that I'm getting some Angels. And I'm getting 15% Angels, which is fine. What I'm not getting is any 5-man stacks with the Angels. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just give myself, just for funsies, like 15% Angels, 5-mans. Okay. This way, we're melding our sheet analysis, right? With our actual lineup builds. And I just want to make sure we have a decent amount of Toronto as well. And we do have a decent amount of Toronto. So again, we'll go back here. We will put in. Now, I'm going to tell you why I don't do rules, Clay. Okay? Especially in baseball. Because when you do SaberSim, they have all the main rules that you're going to want for high upside correlations, high upside lineups already built into their algorithms. So for me to go ahead and just put more rules in, we're just basically either double counting or we're just kind of just not taking advantage of the system here. Okay. Okay. Right. So as you'll see, I mean, this is not going to, whatever. So this is my current lineup build for DraftKings here. And you'll see that the lineups have entries to, those are like the big buy-ins. So these are the ones you have to pay a little bit more attention to. You'll notice, by the way, they have Tampa in 2 of them. So, we have to watch the lineups over there. Okay. Maybe we would prefer to play the Angels or something like that. The other thing that I thought about earlier was to play the Dodgers, but they're just not, doesn't seem to be showing up. And there's a lot of good content out there that's telling me the Dodgers are like the best stack on the board. I'm just not getting there. So I'll think about that. I'll think about maybe swapping some Angels over to Dodgers a little bit later, but I think I kind of like this. So to answer your question, Clay, no, I don't set really any rules, except the one thing I'll do again is after the build, maybe I will go min 2 as far as unique goes, but as far as lineup construction goes, I'm not doing anything. All right, if you wouldn't mind, I'm just using my own process. So now I'm going to look at FanDuel. Same thing. We're going to start with the sheets here, and you'll see that pitching wise, there's 5 pitchers that really stand out over the others. Kershaw, Verlander, Glasnow, Whitlock, and Castillo. And the first thing you'll note, I mean, really, really quickly, is that Whitlock kind of cracked the top 5 on FanDuel, which is not normal. Usually these kind of like SP2-ish type pitchers aren't really who you want to play on FanDuel. But here, I mean, he rates pretty high. and at very, very low ownership, it's definitely to consider. The other thing I'll notice is ownership-wise, you're getting a little bit of a break with both Verlander and Castillo. Well, maybe not so much Castillo, but definitely Verlander. Now, by the way, as far as, narratives or, oh my God, I don't want somebody to burn us or whatever, I'm not really too concerned about that. As a matter of fact, like if you look at Verlander, for example, I mean, just for fun, I mean, this looks like exactly when you want to play him, right? I mean, if you're really that type of game log watcher, you see he had 49, then he had 6, then 46, then 3, then 43, then 6. Hey, if I'm that type of person, I'll say, okay, give me the 45. The point is that I'm not too concerned about the most recent outing, especially at Atlanta. And you think about this, his 3 duds were at Atlanta, at Colorado, and against Tampa. I honestly cannot imagine 3 worst spots, right? To go into Colorado, to go into Atlanta, and then for your one home game, you get Tampa. So I'm not too worried about it. I mean, I'm worried about it because he's just not the same Justin Verlander. But as they said the Billy Bean character said in Moneyball to the David Justice character, we're not paying you for the guy you were. We're paying you for the guy that you are now. And I think even the guy that he is now at 8K is very reasonable. So I'm not too worried about that. So again, when we're building our pitchers in FanDuel, these are the guys that we're going to want. We're going to want these kind of 5 guys. All right. Here's a question I forgot to answer for myself before we leave DraftKings. So while I do have the top 4 being really at the top of the list, I do have some ownership to almost everybody, and I think that's okay. Like, I think that's healthy, especially when you're playing like a bunch of lineups. All right, so let's look at the stacks on FanDuel, and then we'll build again, and we'll do the exact same thing. So FanDuel, we'll do the same thing. Well, first we'll rank them by raw stacks, and what you'll see about FanDuel is that there's not that much difference between modified and raw, and it's very similar. You see Tampa and Boston at the top, then a whole bunch of teams. See, this one is interesting because you have the Dodgers here that's just below, and they're really much lower owned. So I might actually hand build a Dodger lineup for the big buy-in if I don't get it. Okay. And the other one, once again, Texas, again, really, really low ownership. I would think that these are actually my 2 favorites if you're not playing Tampa or Boston. And same thing, I think you're getting a good ownership break with Tampa. So if I were hand building, it would be Tampa, LA Dodgers, and Texas. Like those 3, just kind of like shuffle those guys. And when you, for example, like when you resort them by modified stacks, you get Boston at the top again. KC moves up. Tampa, again, Dodgers, and they all move down because these guys are all expensive. But you can get these guys in if you want to play Whitlock, like for example. So let's go to back to SaberSim, and we're going to build. And we're doing the same thing, by the way, on FanDuel, playing like 50 lineups in the lottery, and then a couple of big buy-ins. So we already uploaded the projections to SaberSim, and we're going to build right here. So 50 lineups, 150 max. We'll do a min salary of $34,500, and we will build. And I do have the chat up here, so if you do have any specific questions, feel free. I'm just kind of like rolling and doing my thing. All right, so pitching wise, without making any adjustments, you would be getting a full 60% Verlander. And as far as team stacks, we'd be getting Tampa, Toronto, Philly. So what we have to do again is go into stack types and mess around with this, first of all. So again, we don't need any 3-3s on FanDuel. As a matter of fact, this is always a question I have for myself on FanDuel is do I really want to be pure and play all 4 4s? Or should I accept the fact that almost half of them are going to be 4 3s? I mean, I kind of almost want to do all 4 4s, but we'll get back to that. So when we readjust and get rid of the stacks we don't want, let's just see how that affects the team stacks. Again, 40% Toronto, 34% Tampa, Angels, Cincinnati. But we're not getting any Dodgers again. Why are they not letting us get any Dodgers? Well, so what you could do is, you know what? This is America. You can give yourselves a min 20% of the Dodgers, and then you're in. And make sure we have them in four mans. No. We got to have at least 20% Dodger four mans. Now it's yelling at me. Now, whenever it yells at you, you probably want to listen and not do anything different, because when SaberSim yells at you, what it's saying is that you're getting way too off of what's probably going to be optimal. Okay. So, but let's do it anyway. Let's send the new exposures. We'll rebuild with our requiring us to have 20% Dodgers. But if I don't like what I'm seeing, you know what I could do is say, screw it. I'm not going to play him in the lottery. I'll just play him in the 555. You know, teach you a lesson, SaberSim. You give me 0% of them in the lottery, I'll still make it my highest money-wise owned stack. Probably not the greatest idea in the world, but get to be my age, get to be somewhat stubborn, I guess. All right, so let's see. When we redo it, still the same kind of Verlander stuff. Oh, let's again make that min unique player change to 2, which I like. And a full 50% Toronto. And are we getting the 20% Dodgers we want? Yes, we are. And I think that we're kind of good, right? Now, again, it is very scary, you know, when you have 40% Verlander who just hasn't really done anything, but, you know, that's what we got to trust. So to answer your question, really, James, who is your most expensive pitcher who you could avoid? I guess that would be Verlander. And you know what? It's very fitting considering my highest owned guy. I had like 70% Scherzer last night, who couldn't even get out of the fourth for the Mets against the Yankees. So it would be, it's 100% fitting that you should probably just not play him. But you know, I'm too much of a stat nerd to avoid this. What's interesting here is that Detmer's 12%. So, no, I like it. No, not a Met stack. You want a Yankee stack, James. Yeah, you want a Yankee stack. You don't want a Met stack. I mean, you use a Met stack, but the Yankee stack that you want to play. I'm not getting as much Whitlock as I thought I was going to. So what I could do, again, same thing. Let's go ahead and do a min exposure of 20% Whitlock, for example. We'll apply. And yeah, no problem, James. Yeah, listen, I'm here to serve. I'm here to blow up all lineups. Okay. Now again, same thing. We could change this from large fields to maybe large slate. This is not bad. Do that. Don't really change all that much, but it like makes you feel like you're doing something, I guess. So team stacks, stack types. Yeah, now it's getting me all these like 3-3-2s, so we got to get rid of that. That's gonna ruin my whatchamacallit. Oh, this one. How about this? Top rated lineup's got a Stanton one off. Let's go. Like that. That's actually pretty cool. I kind of like this idea. All right. So what we're going to do is first we're going to download these. Same idea as before, and we're going to replace these with in FanDuel. So let's copy this. Now, again, this is not the most efficient way to do it. You could certainly use the SaberSim entry editor, but quite honestly, I'm just not quite as adept with it. I'm actually just much faster when it comes to this. Okay. And I'm pretty sure that I am going to use the Dodgers as the big buy-in. Let's see what that looks like, actually. Let's first just do the regular, just use the top rated lineups in the top buy-in tournaments, whatever, and then we can go in and tweak it a little bit. We obviously have to watch lineups, and I don't know if Tampa's gotten. Yeah, I'll always, so I'm around tonight, so I'll be double checking this stuff. Okay, so let's take a look and see if I just want to just say screw everybody and hand build this. So let's go into highest entry fees, and we will edit this lineup. All right, so if I wanted to say screw everybody, like I said, boom. Wait, before I do anything, let me just make sure that I had those stacks that I wanted, right? I said Texas and Dodgers. Let's just take a look. Right, same thing. It's not giving me any of what I want here. It's giving me 10% Texas, 20% Dodgers, but only because I forced myself to have the Dodgers. Texas, nothing. All right, so maybe I'll put Texas in the big buy-in. Why not? All right, so let's see what the actual players look like, and we'll fill in the pitchers later. How about that? Let's go. What's within the stacks? And who did I say was going to be the team? It was either going to be so either Tampa, Dodgers. It's just got to be the Dodgers. So Freeman, Betts, Martinez, Outman. Let's put him in. So what's interesting, by the way, here's something to consider, by the way, when it comes to the Dodgers. And this is something that I'm going to do. Hold on. Freeman, Martinez, who is it? Mookie and Outman. Just be careful with the lefties, only because they're starting a righty with the Clevenger, and they might bring lefties in, and you might get pinch hit for at the end. So you do have to be careful with the Dodgers players, especially like the Peralta, like for example. But maybe Outman too. I might have to worry about him. So now what I want to do is let's see what Texas guys we can get in. Like, again, we're not worried about price yet because I know we could always go to that cheapo. As far as pitching goes, let's take a look. So as far as Texas goes, it would be Semien, Seager, Garcia, Jung. I don't think we're going to be able to play all these guys, but let's take a look. I just don't think we're going to be able to do it. Yeah, there's no way. But let's do it anyway. Let's try. So, LA, Texas. Where is Seager? Is he not playing some? Oh, so expensive. We're not going to be able to afford all these guys. No wonder these guys are all low owned. Seager. Who else? Was it Garcia? And who was the fourth? Semien? Yeah, unless you can find a $3,800 pitcher, it's not going to work. Okay, so that's why you can't do it. But we could definitely play the Dodgers. So let's get rid of Texas then. And let's see if we can fit Tampa in with the Dodgers. Rosarena, Franco, Lowe, and Diaz. Let's see if we can get everything that we want. I mean, if we can, that's great, but I don't think we'll get everything. You never, like they said, like the Stone said, right? You if you try, you might find you get what you need, right? All right. So Franco, Rosarena, and who was the other one we wanted? Diaz and Lowe. Let's see. Diaz is first, third. Yeah, we're not going to be able to do that either. No wonder all these guys are low owned, but I really want to play the Dodgers. So what can I do? What can I do? Well, what you can do, if I really want to play the Dodgers, and this is, not for the faint of heart, is we'll just go into like value stacks, for example, which we don't do all too often. You could play the cheapos from Boston. Oh, the Refsnyder's really cheap, right? Or what you could do is you should go by position by position. All this is just so we're jamming in the Dodgers. Maybe this all isn't the greatest idea in the world. I'll tell you what looks like a weird value. So how about the Cubs? No one's playing these idiots. I don't think. Tauchman is going to be chalky on DraftKings because he's like really cheap. How much are these KC guys after all that's said and done? Well, Lopez we don't want to play. These guys are too expensive. We're not playing Salvador Perez. What are the Cincinnati guys? Yeah, then you're playing De La Cruz. Why don't we do this? Let's go into here. Let's go back into, and all this is so that we could force it in the freaking Dodgers. Why am I doing this? A couple more shots at this, and we're just not going to do this. So you have Duvall at 2,900 and Refsnyder. Okay, so this is what you got to do. You got to play these two Red Sox guys. So Duvall and Refsnyder, that's what's going to make all this work, right? Okay. So we'll go to Boston. We'll go to Duvall at 2,900. We'll go to Refsnyder at 2 cents, right, at 2,600. And then, well, we're definitely going to be playing Whitlock, right? And then third and short. Third and short. Now we can play with, now we can put in a couple of Texas guys if you want. If you want to do that. Or we can even play Franco. What Boston guys? You play Kiki Hernandez at 2,700. And then whatever you want at third. I mean, you could play, and then you could actually do a 4-4 and not play Whitlock. Who was the other guy we wanted to play at pitcher besides Whitlock? You could, oh my God, you can almost play Verlander in this build? Really? Wow. We're going to have to make this work. All right. We're going to have to make this work. So we can almost get exactly what we want, and we could save we need to save 500. So it's either, again, an Outman, if there's a better value play than Outman, that would make sense because Outman has pinch hit risk anyway. So I wonder if there is a cutesy little one-off you could play for 2,400 in the outfield. That is one thing you can consider. Or Duvall 2,900 is a little too cheap. Maybe there's a better outfielder than Martinez. Let's take a look and see just what these guys look like. So, oh, I know what's going to end up happening. You were going to end up with like a Peralta and hope he doesn't get sub. Yep, there it is. It's exactly. Boom. 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 Yeah, so there you go. There you have it. And that's how I'm going to build my big buy-ins. Okay. Well, I'll do the same thing with DraftKings just for fun. Yeah, Tauchman, I like it. So let's see. Again, right now, the big buy-in looks a little bit like this, which I'm not too thrilled about. This one's got like a one-off with Tampa and Kershaw and Whitlock or whatever. What I'd like to do is see, we're going to clear the field here. We know we can play whatever these pitchers we want, right? We're going to and probably end up playing Whitlock with somebody. But let's just go again and let's go revisit our stacks here for DraftKings and see what we want. So it's either going to be like if you play the top one, you're playing Tampa, or you could play Toronto, or the Angels, or the Dodgers. Those are my choices. I don't think we're going to be able to afford Texas. It's just not going to work. Just in case. let's say, I think Toronto is probably the idea. Springer, Bichette, Guerrero, or maybe it's Tampa. Well, let's look at the Tampa ones first. Okay, Tampa ones first. Tampa, where'd Tampa go? Oh, here. Well, we don't have a lineup yet, which actually kind of helps ownership a little bit. So we'll go Tampa. Oh, look at how expensive these guys are. This is going to be really difficult. Like I said, and you don't want to double pay down for pitching. Like at the very lowest, we want to play Verlander, right? So even that, leaves us at 4,100 a man. And I'm not going any lower than this. I'm not playing worse than Verlander or Whitlock. So maybe we can't do the Guerrero, Springer, Bichette, Varshaw, Chapman. But you can do Springer, Guerrero, and Varshaw. Let's start with that, actually. Let's do Toronto. I'm just going to see how this all fits. Toronto goes Springer, Varshaw, who did I say? Chapman, Kirk, and Guerrero. Yeah, we could do this pretty easily, actually, and still have 4,900 a man. You could play some dudes if you wanted. You could then, if you wanted to, you could play some Tampas. It depends on who's starting and all this stuff. But I mean, like, just for example, you play. I don't even know if all these guys are playing, but this, and Siri or somebody like that. So this can. So again, if you played pay down and Verlander or Whitlock, you could play all these dudes, starting with a pretty good set of Houston of Toronto guys if you want. I don't know if I want to do this. Just for the hell of it. I got the Dodgers my main buy-in over on FanDuel. I don't need to do it over here. The other thing that I want to experiment with is double paying and just like making the good plays. You can play like Kershaw and Castillo, for example. So if you do this, right, then we all know what we're going to play, right? Here's my quiz. Based on everything that I've just said, if we play Kershaw and Castillo, which is our stat? What stack are we going to play? I mean, I know the answer already. The answer is going to be, unfortunately, something like Kansas City, right? And I say, unfortunately, only because you're not getting any ownership break playing Kansas City. I mean, it's not bad. And I do want to play like kind of the good players. I mean, I want to play what I would want to do if I was going to play Kansas City. I would want to play Perez. I would want to play Witt. And then I'd like to be able to get all these other cheapos in, which I think you can actually. So if you played Melendez, Prado, Massey, right? So that's how you'd play Kershaw and Castillo, is you play the 5-man Kansas City, and just hope they did well enough, and then you just sit there like the Duke at the end of the night and say, okay, Kershaw and Castillo, you just do your thing, So let's take a look at Houston since you brought it up, actually. I have them very similar to a little worse than the Dodgers on DraftKings. That's where I have Houston ranked here. I have them. I really do not have Houston particularly in play, but that's me. Like I would rather play Philly if you're going to play Houston, just based on their projection and their ownership. Okay. So I think this is actually a kind of a good way to play. I mean, like you play overweight your pitchers, and then you just go for pure value over here. And you still have 3,100 left. You know, like you could play, you know, these Boston doofuses that never seem to do anything, right? Where's Ref Snyder? You know, Ref Snyder 2,600. I mean, that's like so juicy, you know. And then here, and then you know, you can play any kind of one, probably come up with some kind of one off at third base, right? Play Longoria hitting fifth. You know what I mean? Like anybody, really. You could always, you know, screw around with this later. Who is the Boston third baseman? Oh, that's Devers, right? Was he not in? Oh, Boston doesn't even have a listed third baseman. Does KC have a listed third baseman? Yeah, they have Nicky Lopez, 2,200. He just does nothing. He just does nothing. Devers is out. Okay. That's probably why Boston, these guys are not like kind of showing up as such great plays here. But but Ref Snyder 2,600 and Turner 3,800. That's kind of juicy, right? So that's something we could do. I mean, again, you want to play Kershaw and Castillo, you stack Kansas City. You know, you're attacking what's his name? Who's the pitcher for Philly? I mean, for Cincy? Lively. I mean, he's not. You know, he's definitely got potential. He's got a couple of really good outings, as a matter of fact. So that is one way to play the top pitchers. The other way is to go the opposite and play the Reds. And if you did that, then you're looking at kind of like a Kansas City style type of thing. Like you're playing the two good players, right? De La Cruz and India, and then you're just filling it in with value. So just to remind ourselves of who that is, at 6:47, we have plenty of time. Don't worry about it. We'd have India, Spears, McLean and Newman. Okay, Steer, McLean and Newman. These are actually kind of expensive. It's so interesting. Third, Newman 2,900. Yeah, I don't know if I want to do this either, honestly. I don't know. Is there any other value stack you can play if you want to double pay up for pitcher, except for Cincinnati and Kansas City? I mean, not that either of them are particularly bad plays, but I mean, they'll look amazing, right? I mean, there's obviously Boston. Maybe without Devers, then maybe they won't be as highly owned. So that's what you could do, right? You could just go, like I said, Turner. You turn this into your five-man stack. You go Ref Snyder, Turner, Kiki Hernandez, and then you can overpay for Duvall and save some ownership there, for example. And you could play Arroyo if you wanted. Like this is a little different. And you make that work. So that's what you probably have to do. And I wonder if you could play with these Kansas City guys if you do this. So if you played the Bostons, see, once again, you're back at freaking Lopez. What's Arroyo? He's second base shortstop. So I could actually move him. Let me see. Where is Hernandez? Hernandez is just shortstop. Arroyo could play both. Yeah, he could play shortstop, but could play Massey here. You could probably play Perez. But again, we're not particularly interested in this. So it's looking like the idea, like I said, is to pay down for pitching a little bit, just because it just doesn't look like the paying up for pitching. It's either you can either play Kansas City as your stack, which is not necessarily the greatest idea in the world. Maybe Cincinnati, and the guys you want to play are kind of expensive over there. And the Dodgers are not the great, they're not cheap. There's nobody else that's really cheap. So it looks as though we're going to be back to the pay down option that we started with, right? It's this one right here. So again, we're starting with Kershaw and Whitlock, which makes sense. But then I kind of want to play these Tampas. Can we afford the Tampas? At least for now we can, because play Raley at first base. That's cheap. Then you could play Paredes, play Franco, play Rosarena. I mean, we'll definitely have to take another look at the Rosarena, Franco, Paredes. And we're going to have to certainly look at the lineups here when they come out. But I think this is what I want to do. I think I want to start with these Tampas. Rosarena, Franco, Diaz, Lowe. Raley, Lowe, Diaz, Paredes, Franco. Let's put Lowe in for now. And then if I'm not mistaken, you can still play Ref Snyder over here. Still play, who was the Boston second baseman who was cheap? You can play Arroyo if you want. And Wong. Like, you could do this, like, for example. Okay. This is actually not the worst idea in the world. The Arroyo play is a little bit annoying, though. But Colton Wong, not Colton Wong. Connor Wong, it's a pretty good 2,900. And we could play, like, we could lock in, like, we could hold it with Massey for now if we want. So we could definitely do this. And if you don't like Kershaw, for example, you could just go play, save a little bit of money with Castillo or Glasnow, for example. Let's see what Glasnow buys us. If we play Glasnow, then we could actually do some stuff. And we could almost play, for example, we could almost play Perez in this spot. We could play Stevenson, for example. And then almost play India. But if you do that, you know how you can make all that work? Right back to playing Glasnow. Verlander. So I think that this is the idea. You stack the Tampas. You play some Cincinnati's here. You take the 2,600 Ref Snyder. You pay down for Verlander or Whitlock. And the good thing is that if things aren't going necessarily so great for us here, we could always get rid of some of these Tampas and kind of do it later. Okay. Just want to take, before I lock this in, I want to try one more shot at using somebody better than Verlander. I want to try one more shot at using, say, Castillo or Glasnow. I think they're both really, really good plays. So let's see if we can't use them. Castillo, we'd have to save 1,500. All we'd really have to do is pay down a catcher somewhere. I'm sure there's got to be some 2,200 guy we can live with. Let's see. Maldonado, if you want. Hedges, if we want. Seems kind of weak, though. Go back into the Boston pool here, 6:54. Oh, plenty of time. I thought we were running out of time. Plenty of time. Arroyo, we don't really want particularly. What other good second baseman did we talk about? And again, you'll notice that I never really get to Haney after all that talk. Just didn't happen for me. Play Massey. He's cheap, 2,500. And once again, if you do this, you can almost play Perez. You can play Heim in this variation. It's probably a pretty badass one-off, actually. Let's see, what can you get? Yeah, you can't get to Simeon. It's actually pretty good. But it's just not quite as pretty as I think I would want. Is Boston going to play? You don't think they're going to play? I think they're going to play. Delay or late start? I think that's okay. I'll live with that. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe we're not supposed to screw around with the delay. But I don't know. I'm not too worried about that. All right, so I am gonna log off now. I hope that helped, and I'll make my late decision as we get off.